The Brandon teenager is lucky to be alive following a one-vehicle rollover crash in Fond du Lac County. It happened shortly before midnight on Sunday on Highway 23 near Highway Y west of Fond du Lac. It's every parent's worst nightmare. Tanya Swagel Hansen was home sleeping when her phone rang. It was her son, Noah Kaufman, on the other end. He said that he had been in an accident somewhere on 23, wasn't sure where. He was hurt and he needed help. And joining us on the final segment of the show, Tanya Hansen. And Tanya, we greatly appreciate you joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
And it's got to be difficult to come in just a couple of days after this happened. Fortunately, in this case, your son's going to be okay. But I felt it was important to get the message out and to be honest about what happened here. We had graduation parties over the weekend. There are going to be more coming up in the next several weeks. And so if you can get the message out to one person to prevent what happened to your son, then it's important to do that. So this happened, was it shortly after midnight, early Sunday morning, actually?
Yes, it was.
And you're sleeping, obviously. Your son how old is he?
He's 18.
Did he graduate?
Yes, his graduation ceremony is at Moraine Park on the 7th.
Okay.
But he went to Rippon's graduation on Saturday.
The high school graduation.
Yes.
He has friends.
Yes, that's where he did go to school. And then he went to graduation parties after that.
Okay. Did he tell you, and does he live at home?
He just moved out with a friend a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
And now he's moving back home.
Okay. So what happened? You get the phone rings and what happened?
The phone rang and it was Noah crying, telling me that he had crashed his car and it was really bad and that there was blood everywhere and he needed help. He didn't know where he was. He was on Highway 23 in a cornfield.
So what did you do at that point?
I told him I loved him and I told him I had to hang up the phone so that I could call 911. I didn't know if I'd ever hear his voice again when I hung up the phone.
So you called 911 and what did they say?
They were trying to figure out what happened, where he was, and all I could tell him is I don't know. He says he's hurt off of 23 and he's in a cornfield. I don't know what direction. I don't know anything. He thought he was by KK and 23, which is a couple miles from our house.
Is that where he was?
No, he was about 10 miles east of the location that he thought he was.
So it was before that. So what did you do then? So
my husband and our youngest were driving looking for him. We went to Rosendale, turned around, went all the way back to Ripon, turned around, and then we were heading back east on 23 the whole time, talking between 911 and my son. And
what you mentioned, your son posted a Snapchat?
He did. I did see it, and it was pretty gruesome. Snapchat has a map feature, so when he posted this video that he needed help, he was in the accident, his friends were able to use the map feature, and I started getting messages, and his friends started driving to the location that the Snapchat map said it was. By the time my husband and I were east of Rosendale, 911 called me back and said that he had been located and that I couldn't go there. I asked why. I said, we're looking for him. Where are they? And they told me that a sergeant said it was really bad and instructed the dispatch to not disclose the location. And I hung up and I kept driving. And within about 2-3 miles as we saw the lights, and I just remember getting out and running and screaming.
Did you see him there? Or did they put him in the ambulance at that point? He
was about 200 yards from his vehicle in the field. They were working with him. I had him on a stretcher. A couple officers, when they saw me running and yelling, grabbed me and I convinced them. They did end up taking me to see him. And I got to ride in the ambulance with him to the hospital.
Was he conscious when you saw him?
He was conscious. Yes, he was.
I mean, when you saw him that he was conscious, that must have been a huge relief.
It was amazing. It was so amazing.
And the officers didn't want you to see him because they thought he might not survive?
My understanding is they were looking on the wrong side of the road first, because this crash spans, from what we can see, maybe almost a quarter mile start to finish. They located his vehicle first. My understanding from people is that they really didn't expect to find a survivor when they saw the vehicle.
He's tossed from the vehicle. 200 feet?
I'm not sure how far he was actually tossed. I know he was located about 200 feet from the vehicle.
But thank God it was a rollover crash.
Yes. He remembers being sucked out the window.
And thank God the vehicle didn't roll on top of him.
Right.
So he had been at these parties earlier. He'd been drinking?
Apparently, yes, he was.
And this is the thing that parents are always concerned about. And a lot of parents say, well, it's not going to happen to my kid. Right?
Absolutely.
But it does.
It does. It happens.
He was alone in the vehicle?
Thankfully, yes, he was alone.
I mean, just your being here describing what's going on is the obvious message that you cannot drink and drive. But you're talking, and the parents who are listening, the kids who are listening, or the parents who are going to talk to their kids, what do you want them to hear?
The biggest thing is just don't drive. Don't get in a car with somebody who's been drinking. You can call anybody. I guarantee any one of these kids could call anybody to come and pick them up. If a child calls to pick them up because they don't have a safe ride home, I can't imagine anybody telling them no. I never thought my son would do this. Never in a million years. But he did. It's my son. He made a decision that could have affected even more people than it has.
Fortunately, he's going to be okay. He was rushed to the hospital.
Yes. Yep.
Miraculously, the injuries were not as severe as they seemed on the scene.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yes.
He is so fortunate.
Nobody understands how he survived this. He should not have survived this. Everything was going against him to be able to survive, and he did.
Did he go through the windshield, or was the window open?
The driver's side window. He went through. I don't know if it was open or if it shattered. I mean, there's glass all over everything. Everyone, all the windows are broken out. Yeah. He's covered, head to feet with cuts. And
did he suffer any broken bones?
No, none. We were told, because of the alcohol in his system, that's part of what saved him from having more serious injuries. I did do some research because of this, and this is something a lot of people don't really look into until it affects your own. And I saw 60% of teen deaths from car accidents involve alcohol. I'm just, I don't understand why we are raising our children in a culture where they think that alcohol has to be involved in every celebration, every event. Why do parents have alcohol at their children's birthday parties? Why are they handing out shots and alcohol when parents are taking their kids trick-or-treating? What are we teaching our children? You can't celebrate a graduation without getting drunk and then putting yourself in that position to get behind a wheel? I don't have the answers, but I don't want any family to go through this.
Physically, your son's going to be okay. How is he doing emotionally?
He's been pretty quiet. I talked to him about coming today, and while he wants to speak right now, he's just not ready. I don't think he knows what to say to anybody yet.
Right.
He has to process it in his own head, what he did first.
Well, unfortunately, over the years, when these situations happen, we're talking about someone who dies in one of these crashes. And we're saying, what is it going to take? In this case, Noah has a story to tell, and he will be able to tell that story because he somehow survived this crash. Hopefully this will hit home for a lot of people, and just don't drink and drive. And like you said, I think this is important for kids. If they're at a party and there's not a safe ride home, call somebody, call your parents. Don't get in the car with somebody who's been drinking. don't get behind the wheel if you've been drinking. Don't drink in the first place.
We made it known that Noah's graduation party is going to be completely alcohol-free. No adults are allowed to bring alcohol in either. None. We don't need it there. And I hope other parents will make that same decision to cut out all alcohol this year and every year from this point forward.